Hello, Visionaries. Michael Roberts here, Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is a successful plastics manufacturer who's managed to figure out how to get all of his dominoes in order. This is Small Business Celebration. Join us as we learn from successful business owners and successful business leaders about who they are, from where their business has grown, what they have learned, and where their successful business is going. I'm your host, Michael I. Roberts, and we're going to learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. Hello, Visioneers. Our guest today is Tommy Bathe, the owner of Domino Plastics. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you, Michael.
And for Visioneers who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and what is it that you do?
Okay. Domino Plastics is a job shop. We manufacture custom plastic products for restaurant industry, for pretty much every industry, ranging from Fortune 500 companies down to small mom and pop printers.
So everything from companies like Red Robin and BJ's Pizza all the way down to Carla Cope's Cafe.
Yes.
And what kinds of products, plastic products, does Domino Plastics make?
Historically, it's been mostly vinyl and plastic sleeves, adhesive back, menu covers. You mentioned BJ's. We make all the menu covers for BJ's. And we make the same for Red Robin when they use the sleeve style menus. Mostly, I like to say that mostly we work. We are something of an invisible company. You don't want to see our sleeve; you want to see the menu. We manufacture wallet inserts for the pictures for your wallet.
Sure.
You don't want to see our sleeve; you want to see.
You want to see the
pictures of your children, yes.
Right.
So that's very, very much our focus, is to enhance and protect, usually documents of some kind.
Right.
But whatever the packages that they're wanting protected, that's our goal, is to help them protect and enhance those products.
So as a gentleman, if you've ever gone into a store to buy a new wallet and you open up that brand new wallet and there's that plastic insert of that couple that you've never thought that you've never met before,
Correct.
And those plastic inserts, that's you.
That's us.
One of the things about your products is that you're one of the very few plastic manufacturing companies in California.
Not many in our industry. Certainly there are plenty in the general plastics industry, injection molding,
right.
Vacuum forming, other types of processes. We have a very, very narrow niche serving printers and packaging companies with these products, again, that protect their products.
And this is something that's very key and part of the longevity of Domino's Plastics, is because you have specifically, as they say, gone an inch wide and a mile deep. You've found a very specific niche in your industry, in the plastics business, using materials that don't use a lot of the harmful products or the other harmful chemicals in the products that you make.
Yes, it's been a point of importance to us to try to be out in the front of that. There's still tremendous demand. PVC has applications like with these products that we really haven't been able to find. We're continuing to try, and we've tried very, very hard, and we continue to work at this to try to find those substitutes. But unfortunately, in a lot of these applications that are important, there is not yet a substitute for PVC that satisfies that specific need.
And you just brought up something that is very key, and that's something that's very timely in this current age of COVID, is that you used to make, or you still continue to make, just not nearly as much of the inserts, of the protectors that you once made prior to COVID.
Right.
But when COVID hit, you saw, or your team saw, an opportunity to go into something else, which has allowed you to stay open, become an important necessary business, and most importantly, keep all of your employees employed.
Yes.
Tell us what a couple of those products are that you've adapted your manufacturing to.
We were approached by one of the hospitals, and they wanted to know if we could manufacture a face shield. Right? The face shields are made out of APET or polycarbonate, right?
Okay.
Clear shield. I think everybody's pretty familiar with those concepts now. With the foam headrest and elastic or cloth band. And we were blessed to be in a good position to step up into that. Made the initial one for them and found the demand to be tremendous. And so we've at this point I think we've made in excess of 500,000 of these now, and continue as long as the need is there. It's not very often that guys like us and people like us get to participate in something so important. I mean, we love what we do, and I love my team.
Right.
And I'm just really proud to be part of what they were able to rise to and get these products out the door. So most of these have gone to the medical community. The lion's share of them have. Oddly enough, most of them have gone out of state.
Okay.
That's just where we seem to find where the demand. We were able to identify the demand, and so we've shipped 500,000 or 600,000 of these out now, and continue to make them, and we also are manufacturing the polycarbonate and acrylic contact barriers. Those are a lot of those are for local businesses. The freestanding, like you can see on this one, where it's built with the bin so that it rocks back and it's self-standing. It doesn't require any attachment.
And if you're listening to this program, what we have here is we've got a clear plexiglass. It's plexiglass, correct?
Well, plexiglass is an actual
brand name.
Is a brand name. Yeah.
Okay.
Polycarbonate or acrylic is typically, yeah.
And it's basically a trapezoid that's self-standing. So you can put this on a desk, you can put this on a counter, you can put this any place where you need to interface your employee or staff with the public.
Right.
You bring up something that is very, very important in this, is that you are a manufacturer, and for those of you who are listening to this program, we are in the warehouse, the manufacturing facility for Domino Plastics. So if you hear some extra noises in the background, that's because we are literally on the floor of the manufacturing facility. But you have gone through here at Domino's Plastics, and you've adapted to the economy. You've adapted to the need. And you also have another product here that you were asked for specifically by a church group.
I believe it was a church, that they did.
And describe for us what this is and what's so important about it.
Right. It's a light framed. All the ones we've made so far are either a PVC or a light aluminum frame, and then we would have a thin clear plastic screen, and this would then go. I think in this case it goes literally between, the pulpit area and the rest of the congregation, so that the congregation can see, but limit the exposure. Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that's interesting about all this, or fundamentally important, I should say, is that all of these products you can easily clean.
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to touch upon is that, and this is something that's very unusual, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come and talk to you about this, is that you are a full service from design to manufacturing to shipping of your products. So if you have a customer that comes in that needs something specific, you can actually design for them the product that they need and be able to design it, build it, and ship it to them, correct?
Yes, that's our traditional model anyway. It was just kind of well-timed. We picked up the CNC router. I think you saw the 5x10 CNC router that we have in our die shop now. We picked that up just a couple months before all this broke out, and so it's been giving us an opportunity again to We have capacity for about, now at this point, we got capacity for about 40,000 of these shields a day and about 100 plus of those, of the barriers.
Right.
And it's allowed us to be a participant in helping this battle against this disease. Yeah.
How long did it take you to go from design and implementation to manufacturing to profitability when this COVID virus hit?
We had about the first 10 days of full production was
10 days.
Yeah, well, the first 10 days were some real bloodletting. I mean,
It's 10 days, not 10 weeks, not 10 months, but 10 days.
No, it was about 10 days that we were up in production and making both the barriers as well as the shields. And but then a lot of, from that, now it's time, to start perfecting that and getting the capacities up. And
sure.
It requires some patience on the part of the first couple of customers. Grateful for them and gracious. But the team and this is kind of what we do, right? I mean, not a lot of sizzle or sparkle, but when it's something I'm just very proud of my team, right? We've been doing this. We actually started that with when I was doing acquisitions. We bought 4 of our competitors in the last 15 years. And the same dynamic exists, right?
Right.
It just brings chaos, and then they've got to sort it out, and they do. And so this one was, the difference here, of course, was immediately go to 2 shifts. We're doing everything we can to try to just meet this need that was so acute at the time. And they did. But yeah, not without its own pain.
We'll talk a little bit more in the next segment about the initial pain of you taking over Domino's Plastics and how your success that you have achieved today and are taking this company into tomorrow all started from the chaos from when you first took over the company.
Oh, yes.
If Visioneer Nation wanted to get in touch with you to find out how they can purchase face shields, how they can get custom barriers made, how do they do that?
Domino Plastics.
Okay.
Right here in Bakersfield.
Okay.
The phone number, 661-396-3744. They can email me directly at tommyb@dominoplastics.com.
And spell Tommy.
Tommy and then B as in boy, tommyb@dominoplastics.com.
And it's Domino Plastic.
Singular, Domino Plastics.
Okay.
And the website, of course, dominoplastics.com. We can be reached at, and most of our products are on there as well.
Are you getting the blue screen of death? Or worse, are you getting a black screen with white gibberish on it? Something that looks like it should be translated by an ancient Egyptian paleontologist? Have no fear. The highly trained staff at Bakersfield Bytes is here to serve you. As Kern County's #1 rated computer repair store, your business's computers are in good hands. Need to upgrade your computer? No problem. Need a stronger network? No problem. Call Bakersfield Bytes at 661-496-5900 and keep the backbone of your business in tip-top shape. Call Bakersfield Bytes at 661-496-5900 or at bakersfieldbytes.com. That's Bakersfield, BYTES.com. Our guest this week is Tommy Bathe, the owner of Domino Plastics. And what did Domino Plastics look like in 2007?
Oh, well, I purchased Domino Plastics in February of 2006 with a partner. Mm-hmm. In August of 2006, he had a massive heart attack and died.
What?
Yeah, it was a...
How many months from the purchase to when
from
he died?
February to August or September, yeah.
It's 4 months?
Yeah, just a few months, and then we recovered from that. It was obviously devastating. He was a dear friend as well as a partner, and he was the senior of the two of us.
The brains behind the operation.
He was by far, and fortunately, I was the operations guy. So then we consistently saw in 2007, we saw some really aggressive growth. And in 2008, we didn't see that growth. And we...
and 2008 was the big economic crash.
It was. And I wasn't prepared for that. I hadn't really put together any kind of a plan that would say we're kind of cowboys anyway, so we aggressive and it's all about growth and expansion. And so then when all of a sudden that was no longer really an option at that point, or at least seemed so, I drew back. Now this is a very old industry.
Because the business had been in business for 30 years by that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the industry itself is even older, right? It's been around a very, very, very long time.
Sure.
And a lot of people were looking to retire. In the 90s and even the late 80s, they were stuffing diamonds in their pockets, right? I mean, it was they were just doing so very well with this industry, and where the industry that I came from, the customers were worth gold, right? They were very, very valuable, and you treated them so, royalty. And so one of the things that happened was that a lot of these guys that were they were reaching retirement age anyway, and then this hit, and times were hard.
And they punched out.
And they didn't want to put a dog in that fight anymore, right?
Sure.
And so I worked very hard to establish a reputation that said, when it's time to retire, work with Tommy and you'll be happy. And the very first acquisition, and these all came to me, I didn't really pursue them, but the first acquisition, it's something I have a background in, right? We had done a lot of acquisitions at AIS, where I had come from.
And that was down in San Diego, and then you bought the business in Bakersfield and moved up. Okay.
Right. So I had a bit of a background in that, and in the finance side. So the first opportunity we went down there, I was introduced to the gentleman that was ready to retire. He'd done very well for himself, but it was a small plant. And the number he gave me, I knew that I could completely screw it up and still make money. We could still do well, right?
Nice.
And I did, right?
You screwed up, you failed, and made money.
Yeah. I mean, it was a win. And what it allowed me to do was, by using that, we pulled the whole plate thing, operations up in here, and allowed us to keep our crew working through some pretty dry times, because we picked up their customer base, we picked up their equipment, their dies, and being a job shop, the number of dies you have can make you very, very responsive to the market, because many times someone will say, do you have this size sleeve? We have 3,000 dies now as a result of those 4 acquisitions we've done.
Nice.
And so we also have our own die shop that I bought during that same time frame, because he wanted out as well.
Sure.
But we, now that we have 3,000 dies, it's actually, even with that die shop, pretty rare we have to make one, because we have pretty much, any configuration someone's looking for. So. But
you bring up something that's key on this, and that is, even in the midst of the recession of 2008, 9, 10, 11, depending on what industry you were in,
sure,
you still were aggressive. You still went and looked for acquisitions, competitors in the industry, and took a look at what they could offer to you, how you could benefit from them, and if the deal was right, you bought them.
Yeah.
And it's not like you actively went out with the intention of buying out your competition, correct?
Correct.
So talk a little bit about the mindset of acquisitions a little bit, because as a small business owner, acquisitions can be scary to people.
Yes.
And walk us through that very thing, because we are in a recession again, but this is also the time to buy if you have the ability to do it. So walk us through, what are some of the guideposts that you have learned on acquisitions, on industries and businesses and companies that apply to Domino Plastics?
So one example that I gave early on is way back in the days. The retail industry used to send an employee out to count the oil stains in the parking lot.
Okay.
And if there was a lot of oil stains, then that meant people were broke and they're not getting their cars fixed. So you need to focus on discounts. If there were no oil stains, that means that people are a little more flush, and you can focus on the upsell and the value sale. And so what we have always tried to do is identify what those oil stains are, right?
Right.
For those acquisition targets that we might have.
Sure.
Oddly enough, though, they did literally all 5 of the acquisitions. I take that back. 4 of them they were presented to me, right? I didn't go looking for them.
But you built the reputation that they felt comfortable selling their company, their baby to you.
Probably the crux, the most important thing for me was none of these were acquisitions we had to do. And so, and that's key. Because I could start the conversations with, if I can't make this a big win for you, I don't have an interest.
Right.
Obviously, I have to make it, the numbers have to work, kind of like I talked about with the first one, right? I mean, the numbers have to work, but if in doing so, we were uniquely positioned, right? I've got the facility, I've got experts, I have employees that have been here 28 years, right? And so in this particular industry, we could fold those back in and of course cut a lot of the overhead, right? When you move it from a different facility, you lose all that overhead.
Right.
So we were just in all 5 cases really, we were just in a position to give the seller a value that nobody else could come close.
Now, it sounded like a cliche, so I'm going to ask you to repeat it again. But give us the analogy on the oil stains again. Okay,
so in the big days of retail, right? They would actually send an employee out, and they would literally count the number of oil stains
and how big they were.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but the biggest thing they want to know is how many oil stains are there, right? Because multiple cars will come and park, and we just want to know, and I don't know the numbers, right? But are there a lot of oil stains or none? Let's just talk, if it was more binary, they would have, basically it was, so based on that, then they would say, okay, there's a lot of oil stains, which means people are broke. And people, when they're walking into our retail store, they're looking for deals. Right? And they're buying potatoes, right?
Not filet mignon.
Exactly. And when those went away, and they were light on oil stains on their parking lot, then they knew that this was a time to sell more value and the upselling, right? The more filet mignon, right?
You also brought up something that is also key in all of this, because you had mentioned that through these acquisitions, you also inherited some of the employees. And some of those employees have been with you for 28 years, correct?
Actually, the employees that I have now, I didn't bring any employees with me from any of the acquisitions.
Okay.
It was these employees that were here. Many of them were already here when I bought the company.
Right.
And we hired them early on. They're just, and really I would say the second key to acquisitions is, do you have a team that can execute that? That's really where you have a greater, there's 2 places where you have an opportunity to succeed or fail. The first is in the actual, they say that about real estate, you make your money when you buy, right?
Right.
So the first is the deal structure itself.
Right.
And again, unless I could really, but really give that seller value so that I knew that I was doing the seller. They could do better. They were going to do better selling to me than they could literally anybody else, or I didn't want any part of it. The second side of that, the implementation side, is, are we in a position to bring a preponderance of value, right, to those customers?
Right.
And generally, the answer was, always yes. We have more experience, more expertise, much more, I will go ahead and say, obsession over our customers and bringing that value to our customers than generally those that we bought did. Right?
Sure.
And again, most of these guys, you couldn't break this business, right? They were in their heyday, they were just doing so well.
They're pocketing diamonds, like you said.
Right, and they were, these were smart. These are smart people. Right?
Sure.
I mean, and very, very good. Most of them smarter than me, for sure. but kind of in this era where we could then rally around to these customers and treat them like we're used to treating our customers, and it tended. So I have customers to this day that I picked up, large customers, that we picked up, in that first acquisition that was 2 years after I bought Domino.
Sure.
I still have customers to this day. That's a payoff.
But you also mentioned something in passing that's key. And that is, as you were analyzing a business to purchase, an acquisition, you also had some of your employees take a look at what that company was doing and their expertise on their particular niche within the company, within the manufacturing, to help you make an educated choice on that acquisition.
Yeah, I tend to be, the first, you get better, right, at everything.
Sure.
So the first acquisition, we made the deal, let's say on a Thursday or a Friday, went down there with a bobtail truck, loaded everything, literally, if it wasn't bolted down, I took it.
Right.
We brought it up, and my poor employees are still scarred to this day because they walk in on that following Monday, and this place was just a disaster because we just stuffed everything in and said, okay, you guys,
you're
make this
messing
work.
with my space.
Make this work. That was, so then as things progressed, you start to pull in, a little more of the expertise from your internal group, to kind of predict that success that you're going to demand as soon as you ink the deal.
Right.
So we tended to get better each time, fortunately. It still brings a lot of chaos, right, and a lot of stress. Because that next 60 days after an acquisition is really where you're going to determine whether that was a success or a failure.
And their customers that you inherited or that you bought are going to sit there and wonder if you're up to mustard, up to snuff.
You have to turn them into raving fans of your company in that first 60 days, which it can be a challenge because with a job shop, some of those customers may not buy. Right, they may have just bought, and they buy every 6 months, which meant you've got 4 or 5 months that are going to pass. But we learned things, right? We learned how to have the seller soften that, right, in their communications with the customer.
Do the warm handshake introduction.
Right, yeah, warm handoffs, and we did a lot of that. And then the structure of the deal that would allow it to, again, make sure that it was a win for everyone, right?
And you're still doing it.
Oh yeah, we'll do more, I'm sure.
What will Domino Plastics look like in 3 years?
I've been wrestling with that a lot. My son Joshua, who works here with me, we've been wrestling with this concept of we've grown by adapting. We've grown, and certainly the acquisitions. That's just one of the tools in my toolbox.
Right.
And I don't have many of them. I really don't have many things I do
Contrary to what you see behind us.
Yeah, right. I don't have things and everyone here knows me and they know why. But it is something I know how to do. And so the key, though, is in identifying where are those places that we can bring that again, that preponderance of value, right? I'm not trying to overstate that, but I don't think I can.
Sure.
You know, my experience has been, and others I'm sure have a different perspective, but the amount that you can actually influence with there's a lot of noise out there, right? And I forgot the numbers, but there's, the amount of ads and marketing that we're bombarded with. So the amount of influence that you're able to have over who's going to buy your product is so dwarfed by whether or not that product genuinely brings value to somebody.
Right.
And so right now, a lot of our wrestling has been, how do we bring more value? What would be the acquisitions, be it equipment or companies? What would be the acquisitions that would allow us to bring more value to those existing customers, right? Or to approach another facet of the market that would allow the combined to bring more value. I did that specifically with Harbor Freight. We do a lot for Harbor Freight. They're a great company to work with, and we're fortunate to have them as a customer.
Sure.
But I literally went down there and had a discussion with them and said, hey, I buy companies. What do you need?
Sure.
And I'll buy a company that can do it.
Right.
And they were gracious, and they started sending me RFQs.
Right.
That's actually was what ended up with us buying the CNC machine, was some RFQs that came from Harbor Freight, and they said, can you make these for us? And I said, well, not yet, but
next week.
Soon, yeah, exactly.
In 10 days, you will.
Yeah, in 10 days. And again, that happens, and you escort chaos into the company for a little bit, and then that same adaptability lies at that's kind of at the character of the company, and it's the character of the employees, right?
And you bring up something that's key in all of this, which is what the company looks like in 3 to 5 years will be largely dependent upon what your customers' needs are.
Exactly. And so we've explored some of the 3D printing, right? The additive manufacturing. It's a good fit with some of the suite of products we have or services we have now, right? The more rigid plastics, and it's certainly not. We're not just focused on plastics, but it is where a lot of our relationships lie right now.
But if the materials do change, you might shift out of plastics.
We are right, exactly. We're right there,
and this is something that's also key and important to the future of the company, is that you're willing to go and talk to your customers and find out what their needs are, but you also, on a bigger macro scale on this, you're willing to sit down and say, as things change and we need to stay and remain aggressive, we can already in-house make these changes. And so you've already put plans into motion or have them ready to go that say, as things change, we can move this out, we can shift this around, we can put this in place, we can move this personnel around. You're already thinking about what things look 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road.
Yeah. And some of that relates to the why, right?
What is the why?
Another one I wrestled a lot with is in the last 12 months. I was given a book to read, and right in the middle of that book, it was a Patrick Lencioni, one of his books.
Right.
And he was asking that question, why? And I realized at that point, I got stuck in the middle of the book because, why does Domino exist? Why am I doing this?
And you know what? I would like to explore that more right after this.
Let's do that.
Hi everyone, I am Ann Hauser, Marketing Director for the Palms at San Lorenzo Senior Living.
Hi everyone, it's Jennifer Pitcher, local public and government affairs consultant.
This is David Collins with Commercial Trade.
Hello, my name is Chad Tonko, founder and CEO of Primaris Market Development.
What do these Visioneers all have in common? They send us a quick 30-second video with their name, the business with whom they're associated, why they subscribe to the Small Business Celebration program, and they emailed it to us at sbc@smallbusinesscelebration.com. Their videos all appeared on the Small Business Celebration program, and yours can too. Simply shoot a quick 30-second video with your name, the business with whom you're associated, why you subscribe to the Small Business Celebration program, and email it to us at sbc@smallbusinesscelebration.com. Your video could appear on the next Small Business Celebration program, and we look forward to seeing your video today. We're here with Tommy Bathe, the owner of Domino Plastics, and you enjoy motorcycles.
I do.
And you've had several.
Yes, I've had a few.
Tell us, well, what are you riding right now?
Right now, it's a recent purchase. I don't buy them new. Nothing like dumping a brand new motorcycle to really take the spirits from a guy. So, new. I just bought a BMW GS 1150. So it's an adventure bike. My first of that kind.
Why did you choose this kind of bike?
It's a challenging bike to ride.
Oh,
It's not like
a cruiser where you just sit back and...
Yeah. This was much more challenging.
Okay.
Not uncommon in the last week for me to say I hate this bike. But you know, those challenges are because it's designed to perform. Right? And so without those challenges, you know, you can have it lowered, you can have it, you know, throttled, but you're not going to get the same performance. And
right.
So they kind of go hand in hand. And ironically, I've heard now over and over again for people who are saying, "Yep, at first you want to modify the bike, and then if you do, you're going to come back 6 months later and want to demodify it and take it back." Right? BMW is it's an awesome vehicle company,
right? And
their engineers are motorcycle riders, right?
Right.
And so they're all about the performance and that harmony between the rider and the bike. And so now it's me learning how to operate within that harmony.
But it's also part of your growth as an individual, because you started off with a simple bike. You went to a cruiser, which is a laid-back street bike, and now you've gone after something a little more adventurous.
Yeah, pretty standard, diminishing return kind of, you start with an 800 and then you go to a 1500, and
right.
This one has a lot more power than anything I've ever been on in my life.
Sure. And
a lot more performance to it, a lot more power going to the ground. Cruisers aren't known for turning, and these are known for performance, right? So
threading the needle.
Yeah, exactly.
And what have you learned as a motorcyclist in riding and cornering and threading the needle that you apply to Domino Plastics?
I think probably the one thing that kind of stands out is when you get on a motorcycle, and most anybody who's ridden a motorcycle much, I think would agree with this. You have to pretty much behave like everyone's out to kill you.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
you have to think offensively.
Yeah, you do. And so one of the rules we have here, kind of in our senior management, is first, don't lose, right? Much more important. Poker is kind of the same way, which was an old pastime of mine. But the first rule is don't lose, right? And so if you get to the end of a ride and you're able to get off that bike and walk away from it, that's a win, right?
Sure.
You didn't lose, right? And then from there you can push, you can push things. But what you find is you can't really concentrate on anything but riding that bike. There's not a lot of distractions that are good distractions, when you're riding a motorcycle. So that's probably it, right? None of this stuff comes naturally to me. I'm not the kid that got on and stood on the bike, and this is work for me.
Sure. It's something you've learned. It didn't come just as a gift.
Yes, very little does.
And yet, at the same time, you have a tendency to want to force an inside straight.
You had that beaten out of you, though, over time, right?
Okay.
And so that's where I was kind of heading when I was talking earlier, is that you start learning that the risks that you take really need to just be buried in wisdom and
planning,
not gambling, right? Big difference. And I've done a lot of that, and I think it's easy to kind of underestimate the impact. One of the things that is a realization that I had was the impact that my mistakes had on the 25 families that
Depend on you.
depend on Domino Plastics.
Right.
So that was probably one of the most sobering areas. That's where I was, the Patrick Lencioni book. It was called The Advantage, right? I think it's called, and he was asking the why. Right. First, you got to know why you're doing this. Why Domino Plastics, and why am I here? And if you had asked me that, a year into it, it would have been a much different answer. But I realized it was really had become for the sake, almost for the sake of itself. And what I mean by that is certainly from my family. Right. I mean, I'm doing this. Why else do you do this? Right.
Right.
You do this for my wife and my kids and my grandkids, most importantly. Right. And but it's also for the Domino family. Right. I mean, this is a very tight group, and we work hard together. We adapt together. We party together. Last November, I took everybody to Vegas. We took a trip to Vegas, stayed at Treasure Island, I think it was, and awesome, 3-day, stint for all of us. And so the reason is almost like, forget the term, but more like a kingdom that is there for its people than some great business goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that kind of recognizing that really had a sobering impact on me. Then when I thought, wow, I look back and look at all these mistakes I had made, and the chaos that reigns when you do an acquisition, not wisely, or
Right.
and you, that's affecting these people that I love and care about so much.
Sure. But learning how to set yourself up for a full house, and not trying to go for an inside straight, or trying to set up your hand for two pair to win, comes from wisdom. And this comes from crashing your bike, laying it down hard.
Mm-hmm.
What was something that happened since you've owned Domino's Plastics that has served as a reminder and a continuing guidepost that you use today?
Yeah. So a few years back, we had an opportunity that came up, and I was a salesman on the job.
Okay.
I think I may have even taken the call by accident. And it was a job for Merck Pharmaceutical. And we made a prototype for them with a sample machine, not one of our production machines, but a sample machine. And I closed that deal. And we were 3-4 times the cost of the next lower competitive bid. But they loved the product so much that they said, we'll put up with that. We'll pay the extra. But they needed 2 million sleeves in about 3 or 4 weeks. And it was in December, and they kept putting off the PO and it finally dropped. We had about 2.5 weeks to deliver this. And we built the dies here, went to work, and realized that these machines couldn't produce them profitably. And so we would come out, and remember, these are experienced operators. This isn't because I had, and this was all on me. I had nobody to blame. We had done them in the lab, so to speak, right? Very successfully, but couldn't replicate that success on the actual production machines. And they paid me half up front, and then everything from there went bad.
Oh no.
Right.
Okay.
So I got about 20 pallets of material, and it was all bad. We couldn't use any of it. So that pushed us back, even further. Recovered from that, started making that product, found out that our machines really weren't suited. It was just kind of almost like the tolerance stack up, thing where there were just too many things that had to go just right for that to run, and you can't have that on a shop floor. Others might be able to. We didn't have it, and so I eked out my million pieces to him. I wasn't going to let him get hurt, but we eked out our million pieces, and I think what actually happened was they were the purpose for the sleeves didn't turn out as good as they thought it was going to be, so they were kind of happy about it. But we got 1 million of them out, and to this day, everybody will refer to that as kind of Tommy's Waterloo. Because here's actually what Christmas Day we worked, and
nobody likes working on Christmas.
Oh no, my wife, who is the absolute best part of me and the saint, she said, "You have one of these, and you just spent it, right?" But in a lot of that, and we've run into those times before, but you don't duplicate that mistake, right? Okay, put it on a machine, and let's not, that was a hard lesson to learn.
And what have you done to prevent that from happening again?
One was trying not to push that pendulum too far, right? That was a big job, and it was one that in the normal course wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
But because it was such a short time frame, there was no buffer for recovery. You don't push the pendulum so far. So we do a lot of that kind of thing still for our customers because we want to provide them that value. If they need a sleeve with some unique characteristic, we're going to do what we can to make that happen, and we'll go out on the edge. But some of those are only 1,000 pieces, right? Maybe $600.
Not a million.
Right? Not 2 million. Yeah. So that is one. And then here, this is one of those that particular dynamic. It will even come up where Neo, my VP, or Fabiola, my operations manager, will say, "This is feeling a little bit like Merck," and I'll say, "Okay, so let's go back." So that was probably the one that was the most probably traumatic, for the whole team.
What is one thing that Visioneer Nation could do today to grow a strong and profitable business?
It's pretty easy to feel like you're just not quite adequate for the job here. And so part of it is find those subjects. I don't do much reading for leisure, right? I don't read any mysteries or anything. But part of it is what parts of my character or knowledge gaps, if I can fill those in, help me to not make all those mistakes, right? I mean, I've made it's one of the things. You'll not interview anybody who's made larger or more mistakes than I. I mean, that's just kind of unfortunately a hallmark of my career.
Right.
You read in hopes of avoiding some of those, right? I got the concept of not losing that came from Sun Tzu, right? I mean, so I think that's mostly what it is. And then I read the Bible for my faith reasons, right?
Sure.
And
your faith
glean the most.
And your faith is very important to you.
It's very important to me. Yeah.
Right. Other than the Bible, what are you reading right now?
My daughter gave me a book by Brene Brown called, I think it's called Daring Greatly.
Okay.
And when your adult kids give you a book, it's kind of like them giving you a breath mint. Right?
Okay.
You know, you
Right,
got if
sure.
they're, you know, you want to read it if they do.
Right.
So that's one I'm in the middle of right now.
And
Not really a lot. You know, it's unlike most any other book that I've read.
How so?
It's more about vulnerability and kind of daring to push past your, I'll call them insecurities or facades that we have. It's definitely a book worth reading, right? But it's definitely it's a bit of a contrast, to most of the other books that I would typically choose to read.
If Visioneer Nation wanted to get in touch with you to find out how they can purchase face shields, how they can get custom barriers made, how do they do that?
Domino Plastics.
Okay.
Right here in Bakersfield.
Okay.
The phone number, 661-396-3744. They can email me directly at tommyb@dominoplastics.com.
And spell Tommy.
TOMMY and then B as in boy, tommyb@dominoplastics.com.
And it's Domino Plastic.
Singular, Domino Plastics.
Okay.
And the website, of course, dominoplastics.com. We can be reached out, and most of our products are on there as well.
Are you getting the blue screen of death? Or worse, are you getting a black screen with white gibberish on it? Something that looks like it should be translated by an ancient Egyptian paleontologist? Have no fear. The highly trained staff at Bakersfield Bytes is here to serve you. As Kern County's #1 rated computer repair store, your business's computers are in good hands. Need to upgrade your computer? No problem. Need a stronger network? No problem. Call Bakersfield Bytes at 661-496-5900 and keep the backbone of your business in tip-top shape. Call Bakersfield Bytes at 661-496-5900 or at bakersfieldbytes.com. That's Bakersfield, BYTES.com. Who is a visioneer? A visioneer is a business leader who is a pioneer that has vision. A visioneer is someone willing to see the world not as it is, but as it could be, and is willing to do something about it. A visioneer is ethical, smarter, faster, and leaner than the mainstream competition. A visioneer gives value first because visioneers are in the business for the long haul. Visioneers understand the difference between saving money and earning a profit. Visioneers define their destiny. Visioneers create their own luck. Visioneers surround themselves with successful, like-minded people. Visioneers are renegades who defy the mainstream competition and are ready to change the world. Are you a visioneer? Join the Visioneer Tribe with Small Business Celebration on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram today.